We are here to celebrate the life of the amazing woman who was and always will be Chrissy Sharp, here at her beloved Golden Valley Tree Park. On the 18th of November 1947, Christine Sharp came into this world. Few people in history have ever been so passionate, driven, focused and tenacious as Chrissy. Her love of nature, particularly the unique forests of the southwest, ran deep and lives on in her family and everyone who was blessed to be inspired by her. We would not be standing here in this glorious park had it not been for the strength, devotion and sacrifice of Chrissy, Andrew and the band of fighters who saved this treasure 40 years ago. As we have witnessed the beautiful mandala grow organically over the days and weeks, then slowly return to the earth, we can embrace the impermanence of our physical selves, yet the eternal and indomitable nature of our spirit. I'd now like to call on Jimmy from the Origin Centre, who is an old friend who has shared the path of Dharma with Chrissy over many years. Jimmy.
Our connection personally was mostly around Dharma and around the teachings that Chrissy loved and we shared. And what really strikes me today, and all the time I knew Chrissy, is the integrity between her inner life and the outer life. So one of her favorite teachings, which she came and meditated on in the weeks before she left, before she passed, up in our shrine room, was a meditation on the union of inclusivity and diversity, on the union of compassion and ethics, of love and reason. And it's marvelous to see all that expressed here today, because I think those principles she held in common with many communities and many projects, and certainly within her family, whom I too grew to love. So I thought today just a couple of things. One is to share a favorite prayer of hers, which I think you'll appreciate is why she liked it. It's called the Heart for Awakening. It's an ancient prayer. So hearts and minds coming together, gathering resolve. Our motives, our actions and results, gathering resolve. We diagnose, prescribe and care, and gather our resolve. There's a special word, samaya. It means heartfelt vow, commitment, love response. want to know.
Thanks for coming, everyone. In her final days, Mum asked me to do this because she said I was the one who would keep it together the best. So I'll give it my best shot, Mum, but I hope your faith isn't misplaced. Born in post-war England in 1947, Mum had a comfortable and sheltered lower to middle class upbringing until her father died suddenly when she was 14. It was a really sudden death, and Mum never really had a chance to say goodbye. Chris's relationship with her mother was difficult at times, not for a lack of love, but due to substantially different worldviews and values, as demonstrated by her mother not allowing Chrissy to go to her dad's funeral. Instead, she just told Chrissy she was going out to do some shopping. Mum was very close to her dad, and a lesser person may have let the death of their father at such a vulnerable age and the circumstances surrounding it damage them for the rest of their life. However, by the time I knew her at least, she only let it affect her positively. She enrolled to study psychology at the University of Sheffield, but after having an excellent professor in an elective unit, she changed to major in philosophy. She soaked up all the cultural influences of a university campus in the 1960s. Indeed, Chrissy and her best friend caused quite a stir by being the first women to wear miniskirts in Sheffield. She was also amongst a group of students who occupied the university Senate building for a month, during which time they rolled joints on the Vice-Chancellor's desk. She completed a Master's in Political Science, and when working in a very trendy New Age coffee bar in London, met a suave Frenchman. She lived with him in Paris for a couple of years, where she taught English, before they purchased a camper van and embarked on what was supposed to be a round-the-world journey. They travelled through the Balkans, the Middle East, including through countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and then on to India and Nepal. These countries tended to be more stable in the 1970s, and Mum always talked very fondly of pre-Soviet invasion Afghanistan that she had visited. Australians they'd met in India convinced them to visit. So, in Singapore, they put their camper van on a boat to Fremantle. She only ever intended to stay for a few weeks, but immediately she fell in love with the country. In particular, she loved the light in Australia and our egalitarian society. She soon became a smart, polite, motivated, deeply thoughtful and very attractive addition to the Perth's 1970s academic, intellectual, political activism circles. As someone who first met her during these times recently explained to me, it was like Simone de Beauvoir had come to Perth, only Chrissy was sexier. She had long brown to auburn hair, depending on what stage of the henna dye fading cycle she was in, and oh so exotic dark skin. She shared this dark skin with her Cockney father from London's East End. I've partially inherited, I think, and some of her cousins in England have certainly got it. Where, as an English girl, she got this dark skin from, she was never really quite sure. However, she did wonder if it had something to do with a rarely spoken about family rumour, which involved a night porter of African descent on a sleeping train in the 1800s. Perhaps this is something modern-day DNA tests could shed some light on. With her BBC-worthy command of the Queen's English, she worked as a journalist at the ABC in the mid-70s, during which time she made use of the camper van that she still had to travel to Laverton, to report on what the police had called an incident at Skull Creek, but what some local Aboriginal people had called the Skull Creek Massacre. Her investigative journalism on this incident helped prompt a Royal Commission into the police treatment of Indigenous people, which in turn led to WA employing Aboriginal aides, WA Police, employing Aboriginal aides. Many people might consider bringing about a Royal Commission a life-defining accomplishment. Not Chrissy. She was barely getting started. Not long after this, she attended a public meeting about logging in WA's forests, organised by, amongst others, a professional activist by the name of Andrew Thamo. A professional activist not in the sense of a dole bludger, but someone actually paid by private beneficiaries to undertake political action. Something of a forerunner to the modern day get-up, if you like. To say it was love at first sight would be misleading, to say the least. He thought she was a poser because she wore sunglasses. But I think, honestly, Dad, there was some sour grapes there. However, she thought he was the rudest man she'd ever met. Nonetheless, she believed in the issue and began working with this rude man and others on the campaign to save native forests. After they had worked together for some time, Andrew declared to Chrissy one day that he was madly in love with her and then stormed out. She was shocked and taken aback. By all reports, she had no shortage of male suitors and pursuers during this period of her life, and she'd never considered Andrew as a potential lover. During this time, she commenced a PhD at Murdoch on political philosophy, and during her research for her PhD, she became concerned about bauxite mining in the Jarrah forest. This led her to phone Andrew, who she had not seen since he declared his love for her, and explained that she wanted to start a new political campaign. Now, this may be embellishing it slightly, but she claimed his response was along the lines of, "Fantastic, I'll be right over. Put the kettle on." A romance did finally develop. Once he shaved his beard, she discovered he was actually handsome underneath it. And the stakes were raised when they kissed. She said he was the most fantastic of kisses. But what she said really sealed the deal was that he was one of the most intelligent and interesting people she had ever met. During the early stages of this romance, they decided they had enough of saving trees and instead wanted to move to the country to grow trees. They scrimped, borrowed, spent every last cent they had to buy a rundown farm on Jays Road, east of Balingup. They had no electricity, no car, no telephone, no running water. But they had some land and a roof, albeit very rusty, over their head. Mum had to finish her PhD in a hurry due to the arrival of their daughter Lara in 1981. A car had to be borrowed to take Mum to hospital when she was in labour, and Mum washed Lara's dirty nappies in the iron-rich creek water by hand. The building of farm infrastructure, and indeed of living quarters, was done with next to no capital. A cow was milked by hand. They had no tractor, so farm work was done with a donkey. Yes, a donkey. In fact, 2 donkeys. It was a hard, tough way of doing things, but they gained satisfaction in the knowledge that such a basic lifestyle had a very low impact on the planet. The small tree farm tree nursery was established on the farm, and Mum helped organise many community plantings around Balingup. Her interest in politics was undiminished during this period, and she served as a councillor for the Balingup ward in the Shire of Donnybrook-Balingup. With the coming of a second baby, she retired from council, and in 1985, after a 40-hour labour, she gave birth to me at home. Well, technically, in the shed, on the farm in Balingup. I have many fond memories of the close relationship Mum and I had during my early years. There was one time when she set me atop of the washing machine, as she used to when she was sorting washing. She had a washing machine by that time. When apparently I said, "Mum, when you die, can I have your head? That way I can put it on my shelf and you'll always be with me." After a stint in local government, she did a stint in regional government, if you like, serving in an advisory role to the South West Development Commission. In 1989, she became the first female ever appointed to the state's Environmental Protection Authority, or EPA. She remained there until she resigned in 1994 over forest issues. She had joined the Greens WA when they were founded in 1990, though she kept a low profile in the party until 1996, when she was elected to the upper house of State Parliament as an MLC for the South West region, where she served 2 terms, retiring in 2005. Arguably, it was during her time as an MP that she really shined. Despite being a rookie new member when she entered Parliament, she was immediately appointed the first woman ever in the history of Western Australia's Parliament to chair a standing committee. During this time, she presided over about 15 different public inquiries. She used to go to great lengths to make the findings of these inquiries as unanimous as possible, due to her passion for consensus decision-making. As a politician, I never once saw her consider the polling or electoral implications of anything. Rather, she approached every issue with just one intention: to do what she considered was the right thing. Votes would then take care of themselves. This gained her much respect, even with political opponents. It is perhaps because of this, the Liberal leader of the Legislative Council introduced her to Charlie Court one day as a politician of principle, and she always tried to see the good in people, and indeed always played the issue, not the man, and so was prepared to work with anyone from any background and of any political persuasion, so long as they could help move the issue forward in a positive way. Chrissy stuck to reason, not ideology. Because of this, she had a knack of bringing about change without conflict. Politicians by title are supposed to be honourable. Chrissy really was honourable. In fact, she was the most honourable person in the whole building. Someone from the Liberal Party once told me how much they admired my mum's work in Parliament, saying, "Some people try and change the world with grand statements. Your mum just quietly got on with it, amendment by amendment, brick by brick." It was said of her that she possibly amended more bills than any other MP in WA's Parliament. She did this with very limited staff allocation afforded to the minor parties, and often with no legal staff to advise on the technical legal implications of the wording of amendments. Naturally, some of these amendments were environmentally orientated. Many, however, reflected her strong sense of social justice. For example, she helped amend the Education Act to make background checks mandatory for teachers in private schools, bringing them into line with the public system. She told me how when she informed the then Education Minister about this amendment she was planning, he simply looked at her and snarled, "I think the upper house," to which Mum belonged, "ought to be abolished." Her response, "Are you having a bad morning, Minister?" That minister was the future Premier, Alan Carpenter. She was also passionate about harm minimisation, and having the drugs portfolio for the Green, she was in particular interested in decriminalisation of cannabis. She introduced the first legislation to legalise medical marijuana in any state in Australia. Her legislation ultimately failed. She had a bit of a knack of being ahead of her time. Though perhaps ironically, by the time of her own cancer diagnosis, medicinal cannabis had become legal. Drug policy also seemed to bring out the cheeky side in this very hard-working beaver. Like the time she vaped oregano for the TV news. Yes, she vaped in the year 2000, once again ahead of her time. Or the time she pulled a stunt involving her drinking wine and smoking cigarettes in the parliamentary courtyard to highlight the dangers of legal drugs. Or the time Hansard awarded her Quote of the Year for her criticism of the government's attempts to reach out to teenagers considering trying cannabis, where she pointed out that the only teenager likely to read the government's full-paid ad on page 41 of Saturday's West were those who were using it to roll a joint on. It is perhaps not surprising that she retired after 2 terms, completely burnt out. Nonetheless, she remains to this day the only Greens politician who has run more than once and never lost at a state election. Even as content in the West Australian has fallen in recent years, she never wavered in her readership, believing passionately that one had to support local journalism, as it is vital to informing the population and thus in turn the health of democracy. Accordingly, she used to have a copy put aside each day at the general store with her name Sharp written on it. Occasionally, someone else would pinch her copy. A few months before she died, she came home and confessed that she'd just done a very bad thing. For the 3rd time that week, someone else had taken her copy, and so in frustration, she'd taken a West with someone else's name on it. When I was in the shop a week or so later, I confessed to the staff what she had done. They responded by inquiring whether she was feeling bad, as in badass, or bad as in guilty and remorseful. I informed them that it was very much the latter, to which they laughingly replied, "It's all right, we already know. Your dad came in and dobbed on her a couple of days ago." It turned out we were both just so amused with the idea of her doing anything bad, no matter how petty, that we just couldn't help but dob. After some of the things she'd achieved, you'd have thought she'd probably be full of herself, and certainly not lacking in self-confidence. However, the human condition is not like this. Indeed, it was only a couple of nights ago that I was practising my new favourite pastime, sitting at her desk and gazing up at her book collection. I mean, Mum, I've a PhD too, but the titles on those shelves of yours scare the bejesus out of me. Anyway, she had the most wonderful handwriting, to some of you who may have seen it would know. And there, still there actually, on a post-it note above her desk, she had written a note to herself. It simply said, "Believe in yourself." She used to say, "I'm not special, I'm lucky." In fact, a regular mantra of hers was even in her deathbed was, "How blessed am I?" Yes, Mum, but how blessed have we been? I don't need your head on my shelf, Mum. you'll always be with me.
Tosha's already alluded to the point that she looked to the good, and that was her formula for success. She believed that by trying to work with everyone's good side, you'd make progress. And she had the talent for understanding how the system works, where the pressure points were, where you could actually make a difference. And so combined with her caring, her integrity, her following through and her persistence, I think that these factors really were the secret of her success and her good work. But of course, it wasn't without slip-ups. You know, we all make mistakes. But generally, I think she did a very good job. It's appropriate that we're having the celebration here, I think. We started the park together, or this incarnation of this place as a tree park together, up on the hill, where what is now Pear Tree Lookout. We'd been coming out and collecting apples from this orchard. She just loved Granny Smith, so we had to collect boxes and boxes of them. And then we went and collected some pears, and we were sitting up there looking down over this place and thought, this is just too good to be a pine plantation. Later we debated about which of us had the idea first. But I think the fact is that it couldn't have been done if either of us without the other. But we didn't do it by ourselves either. It wouldn't have happened without the early plantings that were already here. They would not likely have happened without what went here before. And it wouldn't have happened with the literally thousands of people who have since given some time in making this place happen thereafter. Nor would it have happened without the goodwill of the department. I have to call it the department because it's changed its name so often. It started off as a forest department, and speaking to the head of the department, he just said we could not operate anymore without volunteers who put in about 750,000 hours a year throughout the state. So I think that's perhaps one legacy of Golden Valley Tree Park, and I hope it's not the last legacy. Chrissy had a lot of patience, and she was happy not to go forward with things, providing things didn't go backwards. And that was really something that she made a difference here. Was she would just notice little things, and if she couldn't attend to them, little things that needed fixing, she would badger someone who could. Sadly, in her latter days, when she couldn't do that longer, she tended to stop coming because it would upset her. It would distress her to see things that just weren't being fixed. So that's why we've established the GoFundMe in terms of caring for trees, to try and help to see that things would get better attended to. But it's not all about money, because this place could not be what it is if it were run purely on a corporate structure. It's always run on the smell of an oily rag, and it's the love and the care of the community that have really helped to keep it together and make it what it is. There is a management committee, but to be honest, we're a bunch of old fogies, and you need old fogies because they have wisdom. But I sort of think we don't fully get the social revolution that is happening at the moment, as big as the agricultural revolution or the industrial revolution. And in younger people, the care for each other is something that I've just not experienced. And I think we're seeing the evolution of new models and of new ways of new values. So the committee desperately needs some younger people. There are a few vacancies, so I urge any interested to come forward. Chrissy's other concern was the Jarrah forest, the poor cousin to the dazzling Carrie. The Carrie had not only good looks, but the silviculture there has worked. In the Jarrah, it's been a bit more difficult. So through her time on the EPA and in Parliament, she worked with some effect, brick by brick, to reduce the impacts of logging. She didn't want to stop logging. She believed in using timber rather than the high carbon energy rich steel, aluminium, concrete. But she was distressed about the heavily logged areas where the regeneration had come back so thick that it was strangling itself. So she embarked in the latter days on a campaign to go back into these heavily disturbed areas and look after them. So she was working to bring industry, government and community interest groups together all the way until her strength failed her. What she didn't finish was the book that she was writing about her life, her thoughts on the direction of green politics, and of course about the Jarrah forest. Before she passed, she tasked a few of us to be an editorial team to bring it together. I'm honoured to be the editor-in-chief, and we will do our best to bring it out soon, in the coming spring. I know it will be a good read. We made an odd couple. Chalk and cheese, some people described us. But we shared the same values. We often spoke about how fortunate we were to have each other, telling each other that I could not imagine what I would have been without you. I always thought that was more true for me and remained somewhat mystified as to why she thought I had such a life-changing impact on her. The incredible love and support bestowed upon her and upon our family since her terminal diagnosis has been both empowering and humbling. It really helped her on that journey. I think it helped me to learn how to be more compassionate. So I just thank you all for that support from the bottom of my heart. I will miss her greatly.
Wow, so many beautiful people here. Thank you for all coming. Mum, you walked into death just like everything else you've done in your life. Fearlessly, humbly, gracefully, and with style. Your parting gift when you had nothing left to give was to wait till we were all gathered around you, and then you showed us your peace. A silent surrender into a place unknown. A journey we all must take one day on our own. Thanks for showing me the way. I fear death so much less now that I've seen the joy on your face as you crossed what I imagine into a rainbow bridge. Despite knowing that this moment was going to come at some point, I still cannot believe that I'm standing here today. Is this all a dream? We knew there would come a time when, against our will, we would be thrusted into a whole new world. A world without you in it. And as much as you try and brace yourself for such a thing, nothing on earth can prepare you for this insurmountable loss and shock. As all of the beautiful friends that stand around you today know, you are inexpressibly special. With a diverse resume of awesome, you really are proof that just one woman can change the world. But above all your esteemed accomplishments, most importantly to me, you were just my mum. And mum and daughter relationships are complicated. The love between us has always been so undeniable, but we actually existed on pretty different planes. You were fiercely intelligent and passionate about politics and the environment, and I've always been more of the hopelessly romantic creative type. Therefore, at times we would misunderstand each other and could easily offend. It's only in the last few years that we discovered how many similar traits we do share. And our bond has become even stronger. And even now you're gone, I feel so close to you. We've always had the language of flowers. Sometimes when we had no words, flowers said it best of all. Yesterday, we went foraging for colourful foliage to hang above you, and I found myself in the arc of hornbeam trees dedicated to all the females on Mum's family side in the UK. And this is already an incredibly special spot. As most of you know, that is where Jeremy and I got married. But now that you're gone, I was just in awe of your incredible foresight. Walking into that golden dome of leaves, their branches all entwined and reaching for the sky, it felt like a virtual botanical hug. How incredibly lucky am I to have a place like that to go and connect with my ancestors. And this is the branch right above me. This is also a beautiful branch here, Mum and Dad's willow oak, cascading right over you. And what a perfect tree for you and Dad to share. A reflection of your love, strong, yet soft and overflowing. To say it's intimidating to follow in your footsteps is an understatement. To be honest, I've always carried guilt that I'm not an eco-warrior as you are. Sometimes I wish that you could have just been more of a mum and less of a politician. But now, it's only that you're gone that I'm subtly realising just how incredible and important the work you did was. Not only were you a kick-ass mum to Tosh and I, but you actually managed to be a mum to the whole planet at the same time. When you made the courageous decision to end all active treatment and come home to Bridgetown to die, you said, "It's okay, La. I'm only dying, and everybody dies, even the little blue wrens." And then you toasted to happy families and a good death at our last supper. And that you got. And it does bring us some comfort as a family that despite this being so devastating, we made the very best of a terrible situation. We made your last days on planet Earth as beautiful as possible. And after you passed, I instantly felt your spirit rise through me and into me and around me, and you filled the whole room in the hospital. I've always played with magic, but now I'm a real believer. Witnessing you move into another realm has changed my life forever. And now your physical form lays here at your beloved tree park, at your absolute favourite time of year. You have passed in a riot of colour, and you are now laid to rest in the most beautiful casket. Above all, Mummy, you are surrounded by so much love. What a privilege it is to stand amongst such a beautiful community. I did not know that such extraordinary gratitude and the deepest of sorrows could coexist in such a way at the same time. On behalf of our family, I want to send our deepest thanks to all of you, beautiful humans that have literally carried us through this journey. Mummy, you have left so many legacies and planted so many seeds that will continue to grow. You know that you have a small army of us mere humans here that are on a mission to continue your important work. I know and I can feel that the fire of your spirit lives and burns in me even stronger now. I hereby pledge that I will use this strength in the best way possible, that I will be brave and that I will always stand up for what is right. But now it is time to let your beautiful body return to the earth. Whilst your energy becomes everything, I feel you. You're in me. You're all around me and you're all around us. You're in these beautiful oaks above us. And you are the pansy that brings me heart's ease as I follow in your footsteps on your daily pilgrimage to the Chook House. You are the rosella that came and sat outside my bedroom window yesterday. You are the wind that kisses my face. But most of all, you are every single falling leaf. Never again will a dancing autumn leaf not be you, and I will always try and catch it if I can. Thank you.
Sometimes we can feel so small, we need a helping hand. Sometimes we just spread our wings and fly to far off lands. If life can teach us anything at all, it's tolerance and trust. For without these things there is no hope, and hope we must. Oh, la 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 la. In your eyes I see the truth, the wisdom and the pain. From the heart I feel your love in sunshine and in rain. All so much, you help us to understand how to live and to forgive, when to make a stand. Oh, la, la. And I wish we all could see beyond the outer form, beyond the pains and wounds we gather through life's storms. And what does it matter when we grow old and grey? You are so beautiful, you are so beautiful, you are so beautiful.
was really, quite astonishing.
In your eyes I see the truth, the wisdom and the pain. From the heart I feel your love, in sunshine and in rain. You can teach us all so much, you help us to understand how to live and to forgive, when to make a stand. Oh, la, la. And I wish we all could see beyond the outer four, beyond the pains and wounds we gather through life's storms. And what does it matter when we grow old and grey? You are so beautiful, you are so beautiful, you are so beautiful inside, and this you'll never hide, you'll never when I'm feeling down, I just have to think of you. See your smile, stay with you a while, then I am never alone. The afternoon tea table that you prepare with loving care, like a sandman dollar gone too soon, lives on out there somewhere. The memories that you have left will never fade away. A life well lived gives us the strength to be our best each day.